Okay, we're continuing with the essence of Shabbos, and today we're at Erev Shabbos, and then we're going to go into Shabbos. And so it's an interesting midrash. I haven't actually looked this up inside in a while, so I got this from the Midrash Says by Moshe Weissman. So we'll go through it. It's a very interesting idea. So it has here listed as from Pirkei Avos, and it also mentions that the Maharsha comments on this, so I didn't look it up inside, so I have to double check this. But it's an interesting idea that everything that was needed for all of human history, everything that was needed for the Ma'aseh Bereshis, everything that was needed for creation was created in the 6 days, the 6 days of the Ma'aseh Bereshis, the 6 days of creation. And we're going to see something very fascinating. We're going to get to the Pesukim soon, the actual Pesukim in the Torah, the verses in the Torah that talk about Shabbos, right? Shabbos for the first time the word Shabbos appears, the first time the word Malacha appears in the Torah. And this Midrash is very interesting. So what it's saying is, what Rashi says, commenting on the Pesukim of Shabbos, is that, we're going to get to it soon, but basically that people, what we have to do, because we don't know the exact instant Shabbos starts. So what we do is, we light, the Shabbos candles, 18 minutes before Shkia, before, sunset. And it's it's way before it says Kochavim. So we're not trying to wait and guess the exact instance of Shabbos. What we try to do is we try to bring in Shabbos early, so it's still the Chol, it's still the secular weekday. But we tried to bring, the Kedusha of Shabbos into the week at the beginning, and then we try to, wait longer, wait after the 3 stars appear in the sky for Shabbos to go out and say, so Kachavim, that we try to add, right, Kodesh also into the week, holiness into the week. So it's going to be interesting. So we're going to see this discussion in Rashi and what the Pesukim say, that only Hashem knows the exact instant Shabbos starts, the exact moment Shabbos starts. So what Hashem did is, Hashem creates Shabbos. There's no creation on Shabbos, right? We can't do Malacha on Shabbos. So Hashem himself did not actually create on Shabbos. So he got everything he needed to do done on the 6th day. And we see the Midrashim say that he created double on the 6th day. He created 3 main things on each day, and then on the 6th day, on Erev Shabbos, he created double. And here also the potential that every miracle that was ever going to happen in the world, Hashem created on the 6th day, and that instance that Shabbos starts, Hashem no longer creates. Right? So Shabbos itself, that day of Shabbos, was created on the 6th day. It was created on Erev Shabbos. And it's a very deep idea too, in our preparations for Shabbos. We're getting ready, we're getting ready for Shabbos. So, I don't know if anyone's ever had experience, sometimes you have a list of, everything you want to get done before Shabbos, and then you just reach a point, now it's, time to go to shul, to daven, just okay, I did the best I could, that's it, but it's, it's time for Shabbos now. So we experience this, that sometimes we don't really get everything done in the week that we wanted to do, but this is Hashem we're talking about. This is an all-powerful, infinite being. And everything that was going to be needed for the whole history of the world, even every miracle was planned and created, and the potential was created before Shabbos started. So everything was done Erev Shabbos. Right, so this is very interesting Midrash. So the first thing that the Midrash says was created Erev Shabbos was the opening of the earth. And now this was going to be used in the days of Korach's rebellion against Moshe Rabbeinu, against Moses. So what it says in here is, it says the opening of the earth. It says Hashem created the earth with the capacity to split and swallow the rebellious Korach and his congregation when the time arrived to punish them. Now why was it so important? Why was it so important to do this miracle to punish Korach? What do you guys think? Why did it have to be miraculous? Why did it have to be absolutely clear that it was from Hashem? And then, interesting, why is it the earth itself that's involved in Korach.
No leadership.
What's that?
You would lose your leadership.
Right. So
If Korach survived,
yeah,
Moshe wouldn't survive.
yeah,
Hashem wouldn't have his spokesman on earth.
yeah. Yes, that's a good answer. So it was so pivotal. What Korach was trying to do would have uprooted the whole Torah, would have detached the Torah, right, from mankind. And the only reason that the whole universe was created, as we've been talking about, is Torah is the blueprint for the universe. Torah is the blueprint for all life, right? So then then you're going to have all this life, all this creation with no Torah. Because what Korach would have done is the way the Torah was transmitted is Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses was the greatest Navi, the greatest prophet that ever lived. And he had this unique ability to speak to Hashem, face to face. Now you can't obviously, you can't obviously look at an infinite being, right? And Hashem doesn't have a face, but it's the closest communication that a man has ever had with Hashem. And unlike other Nevi'im that had to go to sleep or had to go into a meditative state, Moshe was wide awake and he would speak to Hashem just like we speak to one another. Moshe would say something to Hashem and he would hear Hashem's voice. He would hear this voice of Hashem speak directly back to him. So the whole Torah is being transmitted through Moshe. Like we say in Pirkei Avos, right? Like Moshe Kibel Torah mi Sinai. Like he at Mount Sinai, he goes up into this high spiritual world of Shemayim. I think he went up to the world of Berea, where the Kisei Kavod is, and he had an interaction there, because like we see the famous Midrash where the Malachim, the angels, don't want Moshe to receive the Torah, and Hashem says, grab onto my Kisei Kavod. So Moshe was on the highest spiritual world that a living human being's ever been at. He had this direct communication with Hashem. And then Korach was challenging Moshe's leadership. But what it would have also challenged is because the whole Torah is being transmitted through Moshe, because everything we have is now written down in a Sefer Torah, which it's called the 5 books of Moshe, 5 books of Moses, the Chumash, which means 5, related to 5, the core of the Torah, the Sefer Torah, so the whole written Torah is transmitted from Moshe, and then the Torah Shel Peh, the oral Torah, is also transmitted to Moshe and then taught to the Jewish people. The Torah, the oral Torah of how to follow the Torah, how to do the mitzvahs, how to, everything that the Torah is teaching us to do, how we actually do it, the other vital component, and Korach was going to uproot it all. So it needed to be not just a normal death, it needed to be miraculous, it needed to be from Hashem, right? It needed to be from Hashem. And what's interesting is, so where are people created from? So the Adam, Adam Arishon, the first man, he's created from the Adamah. He's created from the elements on the ground. And now Hashem has this miracle. So the ground itself, which supplied all the elements, to make, the body of Korach, right, is now swallowing up Korach. And then the Midrash says, like, in the opening, and people could see the hand in the opening. So it was just so clear to everyone that Hashem was punishing Korach, he was disagreeing with Korach, and what Hashem was doing in a sense is Hashem was giving like a hechsher to Moshe, saying, no, Moshe is the leader, I transmitted the Torah through Moshe, and this other man, this Korach, cannot uproot the Torah, right? I did not choose him as leader, he's not the leader, Moshe is the leader. And what's also interesting, we talked about this idea before, like Korach is also related to like Karach, like ice, right? And we talked about before, so like what was Korach going to do? We talked about like water. The Torah is compared to mayim. The Torah is compared to water. And what does ice do? Ice would have froze the Torah. It never would have been used anymore. It wouldn't have been the mayim chayim, the flowing waters, the waters of life of the Torah. Korach would have froze it. So we needed this miracle. This was very important. It had to be clear, right? And then we even see something greater in this miracle. We see the power to Teshuvah. We see that Korach's sons, who wrote some of the songs in Tehillim, like in Psalms that we have, They did teshuvah there. They're standing inside a ledge, in this miraculous hole that's swallowing them up, and they see Gehenna opened up before them, and they see the power of teshuvah. Even if you're about to be swallowed up, literally swallowed up in the earth, to fall into Gehenna, Hashem still accepts teshuvah. Hashem still accepts anyone that wants to return to Him, regrets what they've done, and reattach themselves to the source of life, that Hashem, and the Torah. So that's
They weren't swallowed up.
What's that?
Korach's sons.
Yeah, they survived, right?
They survived.
They survived by doing teshuvah. So even in that last instant of life, you see the power of teshuvah. Okay, so it's very important. Okay, so then the second thing that was created at Erev Shabbos is the potential for the Be'er Miriam, the well of Miriam. Now this was the miraculous rock, and it's strange too, because this rock is the one that gets Moshe into trouble at the end of his life. Right? But let me read here. So what it says is, so the opening of the well. Hashem created the potential for the miraculous well of Miriam, which wandered along with Klal Yisrael in the wilderness and supplied them with water wherever they were. Okay, so what's so amazing about this well? So first thing we talked about, that like some of the first things were created, there was tohu, everything was chaos, the potential for all the matter, the spirit, but it was in a spiritual state and had no form to it, and that's tohu. And the second thing that was created was bohu. And then the Gemara goes on to describe what is bohu, and it says that the bohu is these rocks, in the depths of the ocean, water comes out of these rocks, right? And then we said that we found these things, hydrothermal vents. So are these the rocks of bohu? I don't know. I mean, there may be these spiritual rocks of bohu, and then they create a physical manifestation. But we don't, up here, on the land, we don't generally see water coming from rock. But also another thing I forgot to mention before, we learned in Miraculous Shabbos that we're learning, and there was the Avucha de Shmuel. There was a father Shmuel, and we learned about the mikvahs he was making for his daughter to use. And one thing that we saw there in the Rashi is that a source of most rivers is not just the rainwater that falls, into the river and snow melting from the river, but it's also, there's natural springs. There's natural springs where water actually does come out of a rock, but these are generally hidden. But these are the source of rivers. It's really a miraculous thing. This may also be the bohu, but these are generally more hidden. We can't see them. But the Jordan River itself, right, in Eretz Yisrael, in Israel, there's the source of it. I think they call it the Banayas. I forgot exactly the name. But the source of the Jordan River is actually some kind of natural spring, right? Natural spring where the water comes out of a rock. Okay, but we don't generally see it on the land. So we had this miraculous rock, this well of Miriam, this Be'er Miriam. Now at first, Hashem says, hit the rock. So the very first time, to get it to work for the first time, Hashem says, go to the rock, hit the rock. I've heard amazing explanations of this, of like, at the time, when we were coming out of Egypt, we had been slaves for so long, that for us to understand this miracle at that time, we needed a physical hitting the rock. We hadn't yet received the Torah. We hadn't begun to learn the Torah. So the only thing that was going to bring the water out of the rock, right? The only thing that was going to, and water, once again, is compared to, the Torah. So we haven't really learned the Torah yet as a nation. So there's some kind of physical act that was needed, striking the rock, like physical acts, like Hashem was striking the Egyptians, the Makos, the 10 plagues, which literally means the 10 smacks, the 10 hittings, the Makos, Makkah is hitting, striking. So to begin, to get the water to first flow immediately, at the beginning, we need some kind of physical striking. But then, after Miriam passed away, then after 40 years in the Midbar, 40 years of learning Torah, of being in this miraculous existence, we are now at a higher level. And Hashem wanted to demonstrate this, that we are at this higher level now, where Moshe could simply speak some words of Torah to the rock, and now it wouldn't require striking it. It wasn't difficult anymore. Now just some simple words of Torah would get the water flowing. And that, unfortunately, that was what caused, as we're now on Parshat Eschanan, where Moshe is praying and begging Hashem to let him into the land of Israel. But that's what caused him not to be able to go, because Hashem wanted this demonstration. He wanted the Jewish people to see that now, after learning all this Torah, just we want a miracle. Speak some soft words of Torah, and that will get the water coming out of the rock. Okay, so there's another famous story that I believe, according to Arizal, the rock is actually now it's somewhere in the Canaris, somewhere in what's called the Sea of Galilee, and his student, Rabbi Chaim Vital, who wrote down a lot of his teachings, Chaim Vital couldn't understand like the Arizal's teachings at first. And I don't know how much anyone's ever studied the Arizal, but it is the spiritual science, and it is very hard to understand. It's written so simply, but it's so deep, and like what is going on. So his student, Rabbi Chaim Vital, he couldn't understand it first. So the Arizal said, "You need to drink from the well of Miriam." And he took him out somewhere into the Canaris, I believe, because they were in Spas. They were in the northern part of Israel, and they came down to the Canaris. They went to some place there, and he had him drink from a little bit of the water there, and I believe that was, the well of Miriam is underneath that part, and that the water's coming out from the rock from there. And it's pretty amazing that the rock's still working, which is really interesting. And then Chaim Vital, the story says he drank some of this water. Now he can understand. Now he can understand this deep level of Torah, the Sod of the Torah. Right, so here that gives a little insight too, that this special water helps us to understand the great depths of the Torah. Yeah.
I got several problems with water.
Okay. Okay.
I got lots of problems with water.
Okay.
The Jews came to Moshe Rabbeinu and said, "We don't have water. We need water."
Yeah.
So Hashem said, "Hit the rock."
Yeah.
If you need water, you just took the Jews out of Egypt.
Yeah.
Give them water. Why are you fooling around with the rock? I mean, that's like saying, you know what? We just left Egypt. There's no air in the air. We need hydrogen and oxygen and whatever in the air. We're going to give you air. I mean, hit a tree and there's going to be air in the air. Well, why not just give them the water? Without water, they wouldn't survive.
Yeah.
Why not just give it to them? Why go through the whole concoction of hitting the rock?
So I think like Hashem's not doing this. Hashem's not like a little prankster. Like here's, you want some water? But he's showing us various things. If we look at the whole journey, the Masa Os through the Midbar, first we come to bitter waters, and then we see that a piece of wood, even bitter wood, could be thrown into the bitter water, and it could sweeten the water. So there we see that there is also a remez, a hint to the Eitz Chaim, the tree of life. Once again, the Torah. So even if the water is bitter, even if the Torah seems bitter, right, the Torah itself can sweeten it. Right?
What's the Torah got to do with water?
Yeah, because Torah is compared to water and wood. So there the wood can sweeten the bitter water. Sometimes, unfortunately, to people, the Torah seems bitter. It's like, I don't want to do that. It's like, and we don't realize that it's really sweet. And sometimes we're not perceiving it correctly. Then one time he brings us to Elim, I believe it's called. And now there's, I think there's 70 date palms and 12, beautiful, lakes or whatever of water. This beautiful oasis. And so there's different times in our lives, right? Sometimes things can seem very bitter to us. Good things can seem bitter. But sometimes we're in a state of klala, and we have to turn that around. Sometimes we get a bracha from Shem, and everything's great, the mazel's flowing, and everything's working good. Sometimes we're in such a difficult situation where the water needs to be squeezed out of a rock, right? It's so hard for us. But we always look at the generation, the Dor Dea, which is called the generation of knowledge. When we look at that, you saw miracles. How could you not have amun and bitachon and Hashem, right? But we have to be honest too. We have the Torah. We've seen thousands of years of Jewish history. We've seen ourselves saved from impossible situations again and again and again. And even personally in our lives, we've been in situations where we feel like we're never going to get out of it, and then we're miraculously saved. So how come we how come there's times where we lack that emunah, or we lack that bitzakon, or we're just impatient, for something. But Hashem's teaching us these vital lessons, of how to deal with each one of these circumstances. So it wasn't that he was just trying to put on a show, but he's teaching us that every aspect of life, what we do in that circumstance. And sometimes we're in the circumstance of we need water to come out of a rock. We need something almost miraculous to happen for us. And then how do we do that?
You got 3 million people running for water.
I know, but you're thinking, but see, what you're not thinking is this is a lesson for all generations. And it's a generation of that we often not just sometimes that we're in a place where there's just no water, but we're in a place where we're almost cut off from all spirituality in our lives, and we need to get it going again. And unfortunately, there's Jews right now that don't even really understand Shabbos. There's so many Jews that don't even really know so much about Tisha B'Av and didn't fast. Probably the majority. It's scary. The majority probably. The majority are probably, how scary. We live in times where the majority are not celebrating Shabbos, don't know about Shabbos. They need to know how you get water from a rock, because they're in a desperate situation. So it wasn't just Hashem was I'm going to play this game with you guys, but he needed to teach them. He needed to teach every generation of Jewish people, when you're in that desperate situation, not just physically, but spiritually, when you're in that desperate situation, then you can still get water from the rock. And how do you do it? And that's what the lesson is. That's the deep lesson. And that's why it was so important that this created Erev Shabbos. All right, the mouth of the donkey. This was Bilam's donkey that talked. Okay, so why this miracle? So Hashem implanted in the donkey that would carry the prophet Bilam the ability to communicate in human language in order to rebuke him for his intention to go and curse Klal Yisrael. So once again, just as Korach wanted to, in a sense, become the leader and would have uprooted the whole Torah at the beginning, now we have something very important. Now this is a message, this is a miracle for all the nations of the world. All the nations of the world. We see it so clearly right now. It's so scary. We just saw a couple of days ago these images of these 2 hostages in Gaza, right? I believe it's Evyasar David and Ram Balovsky. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name. Right? But these horrible videos, they look like they're in a concentration camp. I believe it's 669 days. And all we've been hearing from the world is, please feed the terrorists. Are the terrorists okay? Are all those people that cheered on October the 7th okay? We want to make sure the poor Palestinians are okay. Are they okay? Are they okay? And world leaders, even Trump himself just sends Witkoff and Huckabee over there. Do they check on the hostages? No, they're checking the poor terrorists are okay. Do you terrorists have enough food? And they're checking when this video was just released. So the whole world sees these starving hostages. They look like they're in a concentration camp. And I hate to say it, but I've lost all moon in the Israeli government. Where are you 669 days later? You haven't rescued these people? You have superior military force. And you're the leaders of Jewish people? You proclaim yourselves the leaders of Jewish people. It's just mind-boggling. But we have a resource. We have a resource of Hashem. Mm-hmm. So this was so important because this was the nevuah given to a non-Jewish prophet. This was, and he was a navi. He was at the status of a navi. He was at the same level of Moshe Rabbeinu. He had that level of prophecy. I mean, it's mind-boggling. And he also became a sorcerer, right? There's some midrashim say that when Hashem cut off his nevuah, then he had such a lack. I mean, to have that level of connection to Hashem and then have such a lack, that then he turned to sorcery. Then he had to turn, instead of the Sitra Kedusha, the side of holiness, he turned to the Sitra Akra. So I'm unclear when he became the sorcerer, but he was a Navi, he was a prophet at the same status as Moshe Rabbeinu, and he delivered an important message to the world that they still don't follow. And he said, El Lo Ish. God is not a man. He is not a B'nai Adam that is deceitful. He is not a son of a man. He's not a son of a... I mean, what could be clearer? Hashem delivers a prophecy to the non-Jewish prophet. This is the prophecy that should go out to the nations of the world. Hashem is an infinite being. He's different. He created people. He's not a person. He's not limited in any way. And also, Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, are Hashem's people, and it's sending a message to the nations of the world. You cannot harm them. Only if I allow them to be punished will they be harmed, but you cannot harm them. Bilam and Balak did the most destructive thing that our enemies could possibly do, right? They were actually offering korbanos to Hashem. Think about this. They were offering korbanos to Hashem. Not worshiping Avodah Zarah, asking him to defeat the Jewish people, not relying on like physical weapons, They were spiritually attacking us in the most dangerous way the enemies of the Jewish people could ever attack us, right? To actually offer korbanos to Hashem, to have the ability to spiritually destroy us. And Hashem said, nope. And Hashem turned all his klalos, all his curses into bracha, into blessing. And he says it cannot be done. But then Bilam showed us our one weakness, and our only weakness is ourselves. Our only weakness is when we're engaged, chas v'shalom, in Aveira, then we open up the door. We can be hurt. It's impossible. It's impossible that on October the 7th, Hamas, which his name in Lashon HaKodesh means violence. It means stealing by force. They committed Aveiras after Aveiras, and they videotaped themselves live doing the Aveiras. They're so proud of their Aveiras. And how could they possibly be successful? Only because we're letting them, right? Only because we're letting them. When the Jewish people attach themselves strongly again to Hashem and the Torah, there's nothing they could do. They could even offer korbanos to Hashem himself, and it still won't work. And that's why this was so important, right? It's so important. It was such an important prophecy to be delivered to not only to us, but to all the nations of the world. And then the nations of the world can never claim one day that they never had a prophet, and if they had a prophet, that they would have accepted the Torah. Because, I mean, how crazy is it? Non-Jewish prophet who told you that Hashem is not a man, and over 1 billion people are in this blindness right now. Blindness, But that's why that miracle is so important. And it's important also because Hashem wants everyone to be able to come close to him. 8 billion people, everyone in the world, Hashem wants a connection with. But the way that's going to happen, because no other nation has accepted the Torah, the way that the rest of the nations are going to become drawn close is through the Jewish people. And Hashem saying that the Jewish people cannot be, they're a vital part of this world, and they will never be destroyed. They'll never be destroyed. And, right. So, Bezrat Hashem, one day, and we see, like, when we had the Beis HaMikdash, when the temple, when the Chag of Sukkot, when the festival of Sukkot, we offered 70 korbanos. We offered, one offering for every nation to bring all the blessing out to the world. Right? And if they truly understood that, they would be helping us. They would be helping us, clear out Eretz Yisrael of all the Rishayim, all the evil people in there. They would be helping us build the base. They would, instead of trying to stop us, if they truly understood how it's going to bring blessing to all the world and connect everyone to Hashem, they would all help. All right. So then, number 4 is the rainbow. So the rainbow. Hashem destined the rainbow to become a future sign of the covenant, the bris between him and mankind, that no second mabul, no flood would flood the earth again. So this is interesting. So the rainbow it's a bris that Hashem made with everyone, and that's why the whole world's entered into this covenant with Hashem, and the Shiva mitzvos b'nei Noach, the 7 mitzvahs are commanded to all the children of Noach. And we live in amazing times where there's these B'nai Noach they're becoming more and more numerous. I don't think they're huge in numbers right now, but it's an incredible thing that there's people, in the nations that are just reattaching themselves to Hashem, even before the coming Mashiach. They're accepting, the 7 mitzvos, and so the rainbow was this miraculous thing. even I'll tell you, even in physics, the way the physicists try to describe it, and the theory is that each little raindrop is a prism, so each little raindrop will break the light into the colors of the rainbow, so each little raindrop will make its own little rainbow. So really, when you would look up, you would see millions or billions of little rainbows, but they're saying the way we perceive it is that when we look up at a certain angle, then we only see that frequency of light at that angle. Then we see the whole rainbow. I don't know, that's their theory. It's interesting, even the theory is very complicated of how it all works. And then the way they say it works in physics is that what's interesting is that each person would see his own rainbow or her rainbow. Even the scientists would say that each person sees their own personal rainbow, because where they're standing, they see it from a certain angle, and that rainbow is in a sense, or reality, is created for them. So when everyone views the rainbow, right, they see their own personal rainbow. So you can never get to the end of the rainbow.
How many colors are there in the rainbow?
So 7, I believe.
There's 7?
Yeah, 7 frequencies. Yeah.
7 colors.
Right, so the 7 lower middos, so the spheros. And then what's crazy about the rainbow is that it's actually a sign that Hashem's mad. It's beautiful. Hashem's giving us this beautiful sign. But every time we see a rainbow in the sky, Hashem's saying, I would bring a flood today. It's scary. I mean, if you really think about it, everyone's like, ooh, a rainbow. And we say the special bracha on the rainbow, that Hashem's keeping his covenant with mankind, and he's building the Emunah with us. But it's really scary. If we really sat there and see that pretty rainbow in the sky and really think about what it really means, that Hashem wants to destroy the world today with another flood, and the only reason he's not is because he made this bris, he made this covenant of all mankind. It's crazy. And then it says in the Gemara that in the great generation, so I believe it was in the generation of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, I forgot which Tana it specifically mentions, they never saw a rainbow in their days. Because they were such a holy generation, they never saw a rainbow. Okay, number 5 is the man. So the special, the manna, the man that fell in the desert, and you could ask the same question there. Why the bread? And we're going to see that this is very important in regards to Shabbos, the first Shabbos as a nation, and then we have this very important minhag that we have the Lechem Mishnah. We have 2 challahs in each of the sudas, in each of the meals on Shabbos, and this is to remember the man. And then we'll see what Hashem does, but on Erev Shabbos, Hashem, so there was always an omer for each person, I believe, a measure of the man for each person, and that would sustain a person through the 3 meals of the day that they needed. And then Hashem would send a double portion on Erev Shabbos, that first Shabbos as a nation. So we're going to talk about, too, this concept again, that how heightened it was. If Adam and Chava had properly gone into that first Shabbos, and then the potential that we had as a nation, as Klal Yisrael, as the Jewish people had, as the first Shabbos as a nation, the potential there, and then, of course, it was, I believe it was Nadav and Avihu. We had a couple of Meshuganas that went out there and collected, the man on Shabbos, whatever they did. But the world could have entered Olam Haba, and so too of Adam and Chava. This world could have been transformed into the world to come with those 2 Shabboses. But just 2 consecutive Shabboses, we'll see, have the power. The Jewish people celebrate properly according to the halakha 2 Shabboses, it immediately brings on Yemos Mashiach, and we're going to see the great power of Shabbos. Okay, so let's see. We'll read what it says here about the man. Let's see. It says, Hashem created the potential of the heavenly food, man, that would sustain the Bnei Israel in the wilderness for 40 years. Does anybody know what bracha you made on the man? So on the bread, on normal bread, the wheat that grows from the ground, we say Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, who brings out bread from the ground, min haaretz, right, from the land. So we make the bracha. We made the bracha Hamotzi lechem min hashamayim. That's the bracha we make. Who brings out bread from the heavens, from heaven. Okay, so that was the bracha. Okay, so then the scepter of Moshe. You're going to love this. This is amazing. So the rod, the scepter. So Hashem can conceive the Moshe's wondrous staff that will perform miracles in the future. Okay, this is a very important rod or scepter. So I think it is described, it has all these jewels, and it had Hashem's name engraved in it. It had the first letter of all the plagues, of all the makos, engraved in it. This was the scepter that, Moshe, so when he went to confront Paro, when he lifted it, right, the Kriyas Yamsuf at the splitting of the Red Sea, and this is the scepter of kingship. So it's very interesting midrash that says that Yisro, so okay, let's talk about a little bit of the history of this scepter of royalty. It was first given to Adam Arishon. It was given to the first man, right? Okay, let me read real quick what it says here. Let's see what it says. Adam Arishon. Yeah. So Hashem, he conceived, understand. Okay, so it was given to Adam. Eventually, I believe, I forgot all the steps, but eventually it made it to Abraham. Right. So
why did Adam need it?
Because this scepter proclaims that this is the ruler of the world, in a sense. This is the ruler of the world. This is the scepter of. A scepter is a sign of kingship, but this is kingship for the whole world. So it went to Abraham. It was given to Yitzhak, and it was given to Yaakov. It was given to Yosef. Yosef brings it down to Mitzrayim. Yosef brings it down to Egypt. It eventually after Yosef is nifter, after Yosef passes away, it finds its hands now into the kings, the pharaohs of Egypt. Right? Because now, in a sense, during the Gullus Mitzrayim, during the exile in Egypt, now the kingship of the world is given over to Egypt, and they become the leading, right? They become the leading, empire in the world.
So the sequence is what? Adam.
Yeah, there's a whole sequence, but I'm not going to go through everything right now. But we're going to do the highlights right now. So this is incredible. So then Yisro, so the three main advisors of Paro were Yisro, Bilam, and Eov, Job. So Bilam came up with the evil plan to throw all the Jewish boys into the Nile River. And Yisro was, you can't do this to the Jewish people. Like Hashem is their God. Look what he saved Abraham from the fire, and he did the miracle for Yitzhak at the Akedah, and he just all the miracles he did for. He's just saying you can't mess with this people. Hashem's their God, and Yisro could see the Pharaoh's anger. That he wanted to go with Bilam's plan. He didn't want to hear this kind of advice, so he left. He ran away from Egypt, and he became the Ger Tzedek. But he took the scepter, and the Midrash says that he buried it in his garden around his house. Now this is an incredible story. So there was this. Somehow he knew that whoever pulled the scepter from the ground would become the leader of the Jewish people. I believe this is the whole basis of that whole King Arthur idea, pulling the sword from the stone. It's this midrash. It's an ancient story. So then when Moshe, rescued Yisro's daughters, right? He pulled the scepter, and then that staff, so that same staff that that started with Adam Rishon was now in the hands of Moshe, and this was the staff that he used throughout all the plagues and leading the Jewish people for 40 years, because he was now the leader of the Jewish people, and he was also the leader of the world. Even if the world wouldn't accept his rulership at the time, but he really was the true leader of the world, just like Abraham was, Yitzhak was, Yaakov. Okay. So then I believe that this scepter, it goes through then the line of David HaMelech. Right? It may have started with Shaul, he had got the scepter, but it goes through the whole line of David. I don't know when or when that when it gets hidden or not, or however it all works, but then this scepter eventually is going to be given to Mashiach ben David, the Messiah, son of David, and then it's truly going to reach its real symbolism of whoever holds the scepter, Hashem has made them Melech, to rule the earth. Hashem's the Melech HaOlam. Hashem's the true king, the king of kings, the king of the universe. Hashem's going to bestow on a human king, Mashiach ben David, and this scepter is the same scepter. So it's going to be the scepter of Mashiach. And I don't know.
This is not the rod we're talking about, right?
This is the rod.
So this is the one that
When
Moshe went to with
Yep.
Pharaoh.
went to Pharaoh with, when Hashem says, strike the rock with your staff, this scepter. Strike it with this scepter. Okay.
What about Aaron's staff that flowered?
Right, so then that's a different staff, and then it has a different. So right, that staff seems like it's wood, but that's somehow tied into kahuna. Now I believe that staff. I think that staff is never going to be used again, because I think it sprouted, right, the miraculous
put it in the ark.
out, and I think it's stored somewhere.
Stored in the
Yeah, stored somewhere at the Kalim of the base of Mikdash, maybe stored near the ark, or I don't know exactly how it works, but it's supposed to be miraculously growing, and that's also being saved. So the man also is stored. There's one jar of the man that is being preserved for all generations to be able to see. To be able to see that the man that we ate in the desert. Okay, the shamir. This is the miraculous worm that can eat through rock. So Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, he needed this. Oh, so it was used first by Moshe Rabbeinu and Bezalel when they were crafting the Choshen and Mishpat, when they were crafting the 12 precious gems that would be on the Choshen and Mishpat, the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, and then the 2 stones of the ephod. The names were carved into the stones. So it was the name of each tribe, so the name of each tribe was inscribed on one of the stones, and then also, I believe it mixed with the names of the tribe. It mixed the letters of the name Abraham, Yitzhak. I forgot if it's Yaakov or just Yeshurun. It may just be Yeshurun, and I think it says Shiftei Yisrael. I think it says something like that. I think it's like Abraham, Isaac, Yeshurun, the tribes of Israel. So all those letters are on all the 12 stones, and they use the shamir to inscribe the letters. And then this is what's called, so the breastplate, it opened up, the Kosher Mishpat, it opened up, and they put some parchment of some Pesukim, verses from the Torah inside it, and this became what's called the Urim V'Tumim, right, which means the lights and like the perfectness or the purity. And this is when, so the Melech could ask a question of Hashem, and then it would light up on the Kohen Gadol's breastplate. So letters would light up, and they would have to then, put it together what the letters mean, right? And it gave us direct communication to Hashem, the Urim V'Tumim. So that was, and then the Shamir not only did engrave that, it cut out, we talked about before, it cut out the stones that the base of Mikdash was built with. So this miraculous worm, it's not easy to find. Like Shlomo HaMelech, he had to get it from Asmodai, the king of the demons. Some reason he was the only one that knew where it was. And those fascinating stories, but that's the Shamir. Now this one's interesting. This one, let's see what it says here about the Shamir. It says, the Shamir was a worm-like creature that had amazing ability to split the hearts of rocks. It was used by King Shlomo, King Solomon, to cut the stones for the base of Mikdash, for the temple, which no iron was used. Hashem invested the Shamir with the potential on Erev Shabbos of creation. Okay, this one mystifies me. Okay, but Hashem created on Erev Shabbos Kasav, the script, the letters of the Aleph base, the 22 letters of the Aleph base, which possesses the Kedusha that were inherent in the creation of the world. This one confuses me because from so many Sifrei Kabbalah, right, the very first Mishnah in Sefer Yetzirah says that Hashem created everything with the 32 paths of Chachma, of wisdom. And what are the 32 paths? It's the 10 Sephiros and the 22 letters of Lashon HaKodesh, of the Aleph base. So, right, and 2,000 years before everything was created, right, Hashem already wrote the Torah. We talked about black fire on white fire. So, and then we have all these midrashim about Hashem speaking to the letters before He's going to create the universe. So I don't know what this means. Why are the letters created now? Maybe we're talking about physical letters that can hold spiritual light, as opposed to purely spiritual letters that hold spiritual light. Maybe that's what we're talking about here. Now, for the first time, Hashem's creating physical letters that can hold the Or Ein Sof, that infinite light that we talked about, the Oreganis.
Did it exist at the time of Adam?
The
The
letters? Right, so no, so these letters were created Erev Shabbos. Like,
Erev Shabbos.
so they're created, actually, it's interesting, after Adam is created, a couple hours after Adam Harishon is, right, Erev Shabbos. I don't know, but Erev Shabbos, I don't know. I mean, all of the 6th day is Erev Shabbos, so maybe they created before. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so then,
Does
So
it
then
say Bena Shoshos?
I really didn't look at it inside, so I don't, but I don't really know it as well as I just, I don't know. I have to look it up. Yeah, I have to look it up. I mean, these are deep mystery, because then this is also interesting. So then, the miksav, something to make script, and this is interesting. This is an engraver. So it says Hashem also created the first instrument to engrave the letters on stone.
I thought the Shemer did that.
Right, but this is just a tool now that can be used by people to now carve and engrave letters. Just basically giving mankind the power of writing, of script, of language, but really giving this now to mankind. So maybe the difference is that what Hashem was using is purely spiritual, ruchnius letters, or ruchnius alabes, the root of it all. But now this is bringing it down to earth. But something very important, not just physical letters with Lashon HaKodesh, but that when we write a Sefer Torah, and we just take the ink, and we write the letters on this parchment, it's all physical, but that Kedusha, like real spiritual energy of Kedusha, can actually go into those letters. So I think that's what it's talking about. It's something to be able to bring Kedusha into the letters of Lashon HaKodesh. And this engraver, same thing. Be able to write, to be able to engrave. But when we write the Sifrei Kodesh, when we write the holy books, that this is not mere books. This is like, there's real spiritual energy that can go into them. Okay, and then we'll finish up here with the Luchos. And then the Luchos, so the miraculous sapphire tablets, we had the 2 sets. So Hashem invested the tablets that would in the future be given to Klal Yisrael with miraculous qualities. So this is mentioned by Rashi, talks about it. Let's see, where did it say? Rashi talks about it. Let's see if I can find it. Maybe in Pesachim 54a, maybe. Okay. So, like the Luchos, we had the 2 sets. The first set, if we had received the first set of Luchos on the 17th of Tammuz with the 10 Commandments inscribed on them, we would never forget Torah. Because if we're attached to the Kisei Kavod, there's no forgetting anymore. Every piece of Torah we learn, we would never forget it, if we received the first set. It says, it's very interesting, it describes beneath Hashem's Kisei Kavod that there's these sapphire bricks. So there's these rectangular bricks of sapphire, and they make up the floor of Hashem's throne room. So the Midrash says something really incredible. Hashem took 2 of these sapphire tablets, and they became the first set of Luchos. And then Hashem himself engraved the letters of the Aseres Dibros, of the 10 Commandments, in each of the 2 Luchos. I don't know why also they became rounded. I don't know where that whole thing came from. But they were rectangular sapphire tablets. Okay. And they were miraculous, so no matter what side you looked at them, it always looked like it was facing the right side. That was miraculous. And then, like letters we have like Sameth and Mem, there's a middle that's completely there. You have the letter, but you have this like piece, like in the middle, and then they miraculously floated. So the middle piece of the Samech and the Mem, they just floated there miraculously. They didn't fall out. So the whole thing was an ace. Right, so we didn't, unfortunately, the 17th of Tammuz, we didn't receive the first set. And then we finally got kapara, we finally got forgiven on the Yom Kippur of that year, and that's also showing us the power of Yom Kippur. And then we got the second set of Luchos. So I believe, there's, they're both put in the Arna Kodesh. But what's interesting is, I believe there's also two Arna Kodeshes, which is interesting. I believe there's one Arna Kodesh that was made by Moshe, and there's one Arna Kodesh that was made by Betzalel. So maybe there's one set of Luchos in each one, and then B'ezrat Hashem, one day, when we finally, get everything right, when we do Teshuvah, when we do the final Tikkun, when we fix everything that's broken in the world, we fix all the spiritual damage, that first set of Luchos, my understanding is that's going to come back together. That Hashem's going to put that broken set back together, and Hashem's going to re-engrave it, and then we'll be on that status now.
Moshe Rabbeinu took it out, right?
Right, so Moshe Rabbeinu, he was coming down with it.
No.
Yeah.
Where did it start? It started from Moshe Rabbeinu taking it up Sinai, right?
Okay, no, the first set
What's that?
was completely from Shemai. The first set, Hashem took the bricks out from under his throne and engraved them and gave them to Moshe. So the first set, we never would have forgot Torah if we received the
He
first
didn't
set.
take it up to Moshe.
No, Moshe received it and brought that. Now the second set was more tied into the physical world, because underneath Moshe's tent, Hashem told him that there was this vast treasure of sapphire. And that's how he's paid. Moshe never received a salary. And then Hashem enriched Moshe. So first, so what Moshe found is this great deposit of sapphire, and then Moshe himself now carved out 2 new tablets. But now think about it, it's now physical. It's in the physical world. Moshe is now physically doing something to now make the tablets. And then he takes the tablets up, and now these are engraved also miraculously by Hashem.
The first
with the
one
words
was given by Moshe.
completely given
Hashem.
from Hashem, from this high spiritual world of Berea, from Hashem's Kisei Kavod, from his throne of glory itself. The second set, Moshe physically creates the Luchos, but Hashem still miraculously engraves them. All right, so that's the 10 miraculous things that were created at Erev Shabbos that we needed for the creation of the world. We'll take a short break, and then we're finally there. We're going to get to Shabbos HaKodesh, the Holy Shabbos. Okay, we're finally at Shabbos.
Can I ask you about SB? Where is it?
Which,
The essence of Shabbos, yeah.
this?
Yeah.
So part 4,
But I got that.
Shabbos HaKodesh.
Pirkei Avos.
Oh, Pirkei Avos. So that was the Midrash. Well, it was from Pirkei Avos. That was the Mishnah that had the 10.
Yeah, right.
The 10 things created at Erev Shabbos.
Okay, do you know which one it was? Chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Right,
or
let me
6?
just pause for a second. Do we have a Pirkei Avos here? All right, so you guys, it's in your merit. You guys, they wanted to look it up. So here it is. So it's actually in the Mishnah of Pirkei Avos. Is chapter 5.
Okay.
It's Mishnah 8. So Asar Devarim Nivru be'erev Shabbos bein hashmashos. So it was created right in that twilight time, right as Shabbos is coming in. But these are the 10 things that were created Erev Shabbos, and so these were after Adam Rishon was created. Okay, so these were right before Shabbos comes in. The Elohim pi haaretz, the mouth of the land, the earth. Pi ha'be'er, the mouth of the well. Pi ha'ason, the mouth of the she donkey. V'hakeshes, the rainbow. V'haman, the manna. V'hamata, the staff, the scepter of Moshe. V'hashamir, the shamir worm. Hakesav, the writing. V'hamichtav, something to make, the engraver, something to make the writing. V'haluchos, and the luchos. Here we go. I said I wasn't going to get to it, but yesh omrim. We're not going to go into this right now. There's some that say af hamazikim, that the demons were created Erev Shabbos bein hashmashos. Ukavuraso shel Moshe, the special burial place. Now we got a musical soundtrack. The special burial place of Moshe. Ve'elu shel Avraham Avinu. The special tree, the miraculous tree of Abraham, of Avraham Avinu. And B'yesh Omrim, there's some that say af sivatz b'sivatz asuya. This is very interesting. The tongue to make tongues. right? So to make metal instruments in a fire, you need to hold them with a tongue, right? You need to hold them with a tongue. So this is like what comes first, the chicken or the egg. So how do you make the first tongue? So Hashem may have created for us the first tongue, and then we can make the rest of then we can start working with metal and make everything else, because it would be hard to make the first tongue, metal tongue, to make other metal instruments without the first one. So interesting. So that's the Yesh Omri. Very interesting. All right, so we're finally here. We're finally at Shabbos, and so when we do Kiddush on Shabbos night, it's very interesting. So the minhag I have in our scroll Siddur, we say we're going to say the end of the sixth day first. So the chapters were a creation of the Christian scholars. So it's interesting. They for whatever reason they decided to end chapter 1, their chapter 1, at the sixth day. And it's interesting that they just decided that Shabbos would be the new chapter. I don't know. It's interesting. We've adopted it because it's just helpful to have this numbering system to look up Pesukim, to be able to look things up and to be able to find things easier. So we have adopted their numbering. But in the Torah scroll, obviously there's no chapters and no numbering. It's just everything's on the Torah scroll in the columns in the Sefer Torah. But it's interesting. So our minhag and now we got the Shabbos and Miro started. Now we got the Shabbos songs. So it's interesting that what we do is, we're saying the end of this pasuk, we say, Vayhi Era, Vayhi Boker, but we say that like in a whisper, right? And then we begin the Kiddush, we say, Ayom HaShishi, right? So I got a new Zohar, Bereshis with Meforshim yesterday. I was trying to get Pirkei Avos, Perek Shira with Meforshim, so that's on order, so we should be getting that soon. But it's talking about the how we hold the kos, the Kiddush cup, with 5 fingers. So why do we hold it with 5 fingers? Why do we have that minhag? And so we talked about before, like 10 fingers are the sephiros, or the 10 sephiros, that relate to 10 sephiros, but the 5 on the right hand are related to chesed. And these are called the 5 chasidim. These are the 5 sephiros that are associated with kindness and love. So what do? We hold that Kiddush cup with 5 fingers of the 5 sephiros of kindness, right? Because like we said, the Torah begins with kindness. The whole creation is a kindness from Hashem, a love from Hashem. And then we go, Vayhi Erev, Vayhi Boker, very quietly. And then we say, Yom HaShishi, we say, Vayechulu HaShemayim V'Haaretz V'Kol Svam. We start the Kiddush. And then we go through these Pesukim. That's the Kiddush we do on Shabbos night. So it's interesting. So why do we mention the 6th day, right? So we're talking about this concept. We're learning this concept right now that Hashem created double on the 6th day. We'll go through Rashi on this. And then we get to this concept here of now Hashem has completed. So everything's now created on the 6 days of the Ma'aseh Bereshis. The 6 days of creation, and the instant Shabbos starts, it's done. Hashem doesn't need to create anything else. Everything that we're going to need for all of human history has been created. Even the potential for the miracles that we're going to need are created. And now it's the completion. So Shabbos is now, just like every Shabbos is the completion of that week. Everything we do that week, everything physically we do that week, everything spiritually we do that week, it all comes in the Shabbos. Shabbos is the completion. It's the kol. Completion is everything. It's everything. And that's interesting. So everything, the gematria of kol is, the kaf is 20, the lam is 30, so it's 50. And we have now the complete 50 sharei, bina. The 50 gates of understanding is all complete. There's 5 worlds. We're not going to go too far in this. It's 10 sephiros in each world. So each world is now completely complete, right? Each world is perfect and complete. And now it's Vayechulu HaShemayim, the completion of the heavens, the haaretz and the earth, the kol tziva'am, and then of all Hashem's legions. And these are what we talked about on day 2, day 5. All these malachim, all these 10 different types of malachim and angels, they're Hashem's servants, right? So one way we could think about it is like, there's a famous quote by like William Shakespeare, right? He says like, all the world is a stage and we are merely players. There's a little bit of truth in that. There's a little bit of not truth in it. There's a little bit of truth in it. In a sense, right? Like what he's saying is like the whole world's a stage, right? And we're the actors, on the stage. There's a little bit of truth in it in a sense that like Hashem wrote the script, right? Hashem wrote the script, and the Torah is the script, and the script completes the whole world. But what's not true about it is, but Hashem lets us make up our own lines. Whereas like an actor in a real play would just say whatever the director or the writer wants them to say. But Hashem gave us this very special thing of bechira, of free will. And that's what's so powerful, right? Unfortunately, the bechira is what let Adam choose, right? Adam, the first man, to go from the world of emes and sheker, the world where we only perceived everything into truth and lies. And we could see everything is just a truth or a lie, true or lie. Now that's a little cloudy, because now we've entered into the Eitz Das Tov Ra, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and now we have to kind of perceive things through this mixture of good and evil. And not everything's like pure good. Some things can have, like, someone can do a mitzvah, someone can do something, very elevated, very good, but we can have a little bit of our own personal, desire into it. It may not be pure l'shem shamayim sometimes. So something good can have a little bit of a mixture of not good into it, and then even someone bad, doing something bad, sometimes they can do a little bit of good in that bad, right? So it's imperfect. Now there is like it says, so Rambam says very fascinating. So Rambam says, it's Hilchos Teshuvah. He says that in Rosh Hashanah there's two books. There's the book of life and there's the book of death. The people that are perfect tzaddikim, completely righteous, pure good with no evil mixed in them at all, they got rid of their Yetzer Hara, they're immediately put into the book of life. But just as rare is the person that's pure evil, and thank God there's not many people that are pure evil, right? And those people are immediately put into the book of death. And then he's saying most of the world, we're really Benoni. We're going back and forth. We're in this battle between the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov, right? And we want the Yetzer Tov, we want the good impulse to win. We have the great tools of the Torah and the mitzvos to help us win this battle, the great war. But most of the world's in this war. Most of the world, we're Benoni. We're in between. We're going back and forth. We're fighting the war. And that's where Rosh Hashanah, that's where it really comes into effect for the Benoni. So, right. So we've seen from the creation that everything's good. So one thing I was going to say about the angels. Oh, I'm sorry. Why did I bring it up? So the angels, if like we go to that Shakespeare, that the whole world's a stage, and on the stage we're learning Torah and we're doing mitzvos and we're fighting against, we're the protagonists, the good guys, and we're fighting against the antagonists, the Satan, the Yetzer Hara. So who are the malachim, who we can't see? So in this mashal, they'd be behind the stage. They're doing everything that Hashem needs for this whole quote-unquote play to play out. All of human history is this play, right? The malachim are the stage crew. They're handling the lighting, like Hashem, directs, one malach to control the orbit of the sun. It has another malach to control the orbit of the moon. Hashem, the scenery, the background, like Hashem has the malachim. There's no grass that grows into a mazel, strikes it and says grow, and we can't see it. But they're behind the scenes, right? And they're building the set. They're following Hashem's ratzon. They're following Hashem's will. Whatever Hashem commands them to do, they're doing it behind the scenes, and we can't see it. We're just on the stage, performing the play, but we write our own part. We write our own part. Everyone has free will. We're not following like the lines. We can do what we want, but we can't see them. So then there's another group. We haven't gone into them so much. The Shindalas, the demons. What's their role? So they're breaking down things that aren't being used anymore. So whatever is not being used, like they break it down, and then it goes back to its raw material, and then the breakdown crew. Okay, and that's it. And so these are Hashem's legions, His army, unseen to most of mankind. And we saw them, we got a view of them when we received the Torah at Har Sinai, at the Matan Torah, on the 6th of Sivan. So one thing, what's so important about Yom HaShishi, the 6th, that you couldn't have a completion of the heavens and the earth, and the whole heavens and the earth wouldn't still exist if the Jewish people had not accepted the Torah on Yom HaShishi, on the 6th day of the month of Sivan, where we stood at Mount Sinai and we received the Torah. And this is a hint to it. This is a remez to receiving the Torah, Yom HaShishi. Okay, so let's see what Rashi says here. So Rashi says on Yom HaShishi, on the 6th day, the Rashi says this. He says, Hosif Hey Bashishi, that the Torah adds a Hey. It could have just said Yom Shishi. It could have just, Yom Shishi means 6th day. But it added the special Hashishi. And the Hey makes it the. It makes it the 6th day. Like this is the 6th day. Out of all the 6 days of the world, this is the one. This is the first one. You know, this is the essence of the 6th day. And he says, the Gemara Maisa Bereshis, at the conclusion of the work of creation, Lomar, Shechisna Imahem, that he stipulated with everything that he created, Almanas, on a condition, Sheyakablu Aleichem Yisrael, that the Jewish people would accept upon themselves Chamisha Chumshei Torah, the 5 books of the Torah, the Sefer Torah, Devar Acher, another opinion, another word, Yom HaShishi, this the 6th day, what does it mean? Kulam, that everything in creation, Tuluyim V'omdim, they were suspended. They were in a state of suspension, Ad Yom HaShishi, until the 6th day. And what does that mean? Hu Shisha B'Sivan, which is the 6th day, the month of Sivan, Hamuchan, which was prepared, Lamatan Torah, for the giving of the Torah. So this 6th day, all the miracles we've seen that were created on the 6th day, animals, behemoths, domesticated animals, chaya, wild animals, and then Adam and Chava, and then people themselves, mankind, were all created on the 6th day, placed in the Gan Eden, placed in the Garden of Delight, the Garden of Pleasure, and it's all on condition, everything exists, only on condition that the Jewish people would say Nasa v'nishma, right? So it's interesting. It follows a certain same language. When Hashem is going to make man, he's like Nasa, let us make man. Let us. He's speaking to the Malachim. He's speaking to a stage crew. Like, let us make man, because we're going to make man. Because the Jewish people are going to say, he says Nasa, let us make man, because Nasa v'nishma. The Jewish people are going to say, we will do the Torah. Then Nishma, we will learn about the Torah, we will hear about the Torah. So on that condition, everything exists. Okay, so then, what does this mean? Vayechulu, Hashemayim, V'ha'aretz, right? And we'll go to the next pasuk here. We'll add a pasuk. And so the next pasuk is going to say this. The next pasuk is going to say, Vayechal. Vayichal Elohim Vayom HaShavidi. And then it says, Malakto, Asher, Asa, continues on here, Asa, We got the musical background while we're doing it. By Yishpos, and this is going to be the first time we now see the word Shabbos. So this is going to be the essence of the word Shabbos. By Yishpos, by Yom HaShvi. I'll have to break all this down. Yom HaShvi. Mikol Malakto Malakto, almost done. Asher. Asher Asa. And that's going to be, that's 3-2. All right, so let's go through this real quick. Let's see what it says. Then we're going to start learning more and more about this. Okay, right. And then it's all should sound very familiar because it's right. This is all what we say on the Kiddush
Friday night.
on Friday night, on Shabbos night. All right, so then they call, and then let's see. I think it's everything. Let's see exactly how they translate it here. So I think they're saying this is completion also. So Vayakol makes it everything. A literal translation maybe, he makes it everything. He completes it. And then the name, the aspect of Hashem, Elohim, we talked about this a little before, is the aspect of din and judgment, holding back, restraint. These are the 5 gavuros. And then it's interesting, so we talked about a little bit of Sefer Yetzirah. It says like Hashem, everything was created with the 32 paths of wisdom. We said that means the 10 sephiros and the 22 letters of the Aleph base, which are the connecting paths to each of the sephiros. Each of the paths is associated with a letter, one of the 22 letters. And what's interesting is in this whole account of Maisa Bereshis, the name Elohim appears 32 times. So it's the 32. Everything was created from the 32 paths of wisdom, created with the 10 ma'amaros, the 10 sayings of Hashem. The first one being Bereshis bara Elohim. The rest of them being Vayomer Elohim, like Vayihi. Next one's like Elohim said. Right, and then everything's being brought into creation. So 32 times this aspect of Hashem appears. But Yom HaShavi, on the 7th day. So Malakto Asher Asa, that his malacha, which he did. Now this is interesting. So it's telling us, the Torah is telling us something interesting. The world was created with malacha, like the work, the creative work which he had done. But what's interesting about this is when we do malacha, when we do the 30 different types of malacha to create something in this world, so for instance, like ko-save, like we could write, which we're not permitted to do on Shabbos. We could plant seeds, like zoreya. We can do lash, like we can knead. So kneading dough to make it into challah, making the flour into the dough, or let's say taking clay, making a clay creation. So we do these physical malacha. So here it's saying that Hashem did malacha. So in a sense it's telling us that Hashem did these 39 malachas, all these, but he did it in a way that only Hashem can do it. So whereas we do something physical, and we said we're in the lowest world, we're the world of Asiya, the world of making. So we can work with everything that's already created, already made, already in this physical world. And we can change things around, we can create things. But we do it in a physical way. Now what's extraordinary, supernatural, that only Hashem can do, is that when Hashem thinks, when Hashem just has something in his machshava, at the level of thought, it's created. So Hashem's just thinking about malacha. He's not physically doing any malacha. Hashem merely thinks about malacha. He's created the 39 malachas. He thinks about a malacha and it's done. And it instantly becomes created. Right? So it's the highest level that no one can be, replicate. Right? But we can create through physical, right? Through physical. But yet, this is where it gets crazy. Right? Betzalel was filled with this chachma, this wisdom, that Betzalel could also take the letters in the spiritual world, combine them together, and actually create the kelim. So I don't want to say we can we can't just think. Like we have to use what Hashem's created, but Hashem's created, these physical spiritual creations that the Torah teaches us, that someone at the highest level can create. It's kind of a mind blow, but no one can create to the extent, of Hashem, right? There's a difference, right? So there is this high level creation that can be done in a limited capacity, but nothing can be done in infinite capacity like Hashem's creation. But it is interesting. It is interesting. And one of the first books, our Masor is that is Sefer Yetzirah. His book was given, our tradition is given to Adam Rishon. It's given to Adam. But it's interesting. So Hashem's letting us know that He's doing malacha, but He's doing it at such a high level. But what He's transmitting to us is He doesn't want us to do malacha. We don't need to do malacha on Shabbos. Right? We don't need to do any of the physical malachas on Shabbos because we can prepare all week. And now everything's done, that week's completed, and we go into Shabbos. Okay, but Hashem has this high level of creation. And then, Vayish Bos. And then Hashem rested. So Shabbos, like what is this? Is using the word Shabbos as like a verb. Like doing Shabbos, resting. And then so all the creation was done on the 6th day. So that's why on the Kiddush we start with Hayom HaShishi. And that's like a memory to us that it was done. Like the 6th day, everything that was created was done on Yom HaShishi. But now we get to Shabbos, and now something new is created by Hashem, not creating, and we'll see in the Rashi, but Menucha, relaxation, Shabbos, by stopping. And this is unfortunately what the world is not experiencing. Right? Because to actually experience Shabbos, you can't be running around. You can't have your, the cell phone on. You can't have the computer on. You can't be on the telephone. You can't be going more than 2,000 amos away from your house. You can take a nice, pleasant walk, but you have to stop. It's something to experience, because if you want to experience relaxation, you have to relax. Like if you want to experience, the spiritual influx, the great spiritual energy in Shabbos, you can only experience it through relaxing. So being all tense on Shabbos, it's harder to experience it, right? But to relax, to experience that manucha. That's why we do all these things, right? That's why all the halakha, all the minhagim we have on Shabbos, it's all to help us experience and relax, right? And experience the Shabbos, this vayish bos b'yom hashvi, to rest, to stop doing all these malacha, stop trying to create, just appreciate what's there, appreciate Hashem's creation. We can appreciate what we did that week, but relax on the 7th day, mikol malato, from all His malacha. Hashem rested from all His creation, asher asa, that He did, that He made. Okay, so we'll go into Rashi on this. Any questions, insights so far, or should we go into Rashi here to give us some help? All right, so let's see what Rashi says about this. Then we'll get to the blessing of Shabbos. Okay, so Rashi says this. Rashi says, Vayechal Elokim b'yom hashvi. So Elokim, God, He completed on the 7th day. So Rabbi Shimon Omer, so this is the Tana Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He says, Basar v'dam. He says, a man of flesh and blood, she'eno yodea itav uregav. He does not know like his times and his moments precisely. So sarich lekosif mechol al hakodesh. So he must add from the secular, the profane, the weekday, on to the holy, on to Shabbos. Right, so we take Shabbos in early. We do not try to wait for that exact moment where Shabbos comes in to stop doing malacha. Like we mentioned before, like we have the minhag 18 minutes before Shkia, even 18 minutes before sunset. We that's when the candle lighting is. We're davening mincha right around that same time, and we begin to makabel Shabbos, Kabbalat Shabbat, Kabbalah Shabbos, receive Shabbos. We're starting early because we don't know that exact time, and only Hashem knows that exact time, and we don't want to bring Chas v'Shalom the weekday into Shabbos. We want to start Shabbos as early as we can, and Shabbos has this amazing quality that Hashem's created into it, that Hashem allows us to actually bring Shabbos into the world early, when as a community we accept it. Mm-hmm. It's actually Shabbos. And people can extend Shabbos all the way out to Tuesday. There's great tzaddikim that live in Shabbos much longer than 24 hours, and it's actually Shabbos for them. And then we're going to get to world history, this Olam Haba, this 1,000 years of the whole world being in Shabbos, right? Just as there's 6 days of the week, 6 days of creation, there's 6,000 years of human history. We're at 5785. We're getting close to 6,000. Interesting tradition. We don't know exactly when Mashiach's coming. There is an interesting, I believe it's the Arizal, he says that just as the 210 years that we were slaves in Egypt, that is going to be at the back end, and that period will be for Techias HaMesim. And just as the 40 years that we were in the Midbar, that's going to be the 40 years of, the ingathering of the exiles, right? So what's very fascinating is, so if we go from 6,000 and we subtract the 210, and then if we were to take off the 40, you know what year it would bring us to? So I think the 40 started in 1990, and the 40 years would end in 2030, which is pretty interesting. We're getting pretty close. We're 2025. And then that would take us into the last 210 years of Techias HaMesim. So whatever's happening, Bezrat Hashem, it seems like we're getting very close. And if 230 is somehow Be'ita, if that's the time where Mashiach has to come, then it should be getting easier and easier. Like if we're really all the way at the end, to get to Achi Shena, to just bring it in at this point and just a little bit earlier. We should be, it seems like there's not much, merit that's needed just to bring it a little bit earlier if we're really that close. So let's say we're really within 5 years, we don't really know when, but let's say we really are within 5 years, maybe we don't need much to get that little push to just get it, a couple years early to get it started, So,
Can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Not to interrupt you now, but
Nope.
how did the word Shabbat come about? The Hebrew term Shabbat. What is the underlying root of that word?
Do you mean why Shabbos or why Shabbat or?
What the word represents? Like all Hebrew has got roots to its meaning.
Right, so this is the first time it appears. So what we see from the context is this. The literal context is everything's created. So this is talking about the master creation, like Hashem's Maisa Bereshis. But let's say for us, right, so we want to learn out a lesson from this, or we can learn out from what Hashem's doing too. Everything's created on the seventh day, by the seventh day, but we already saw it here, it's all done. Right, so then we're in that whole period of Erev Shabbos, so we want to take it in early. And Malachto Asher Asa. So Hashem's done his Malachah, but we talked about his Malachah is on a much higher level, right? His Malachah is from the Machshava of Hashem. I'll make it better hey there. His Machshava is Hashem thinks and then it exists. Only Hashem has that power, thinking and then it exists. And it's done. So the malacha is done. Everything that we need to do for the week is over.
But no, my question. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I made.
Okay, no, but I'm trying to answer. But it's literally stopping. It's stopping malacha.
I know that, but what does Shabbat mean? What is the root of Shabbat?
Yeah, but it's literally like it means.
Is that a
stop.
unique word to itself, and there's no other
Well,
root to it?
okay, let's say the root.
How did it come about? How did the word even appear?
Well, it's interesting. So if we break it down further, now I haven't really prepared for this yet, but if we want to break it down, we see two words here. We could either look at the beginning of shav, of returning, to shuva, and yoshev, of resting, of settling in. So we see that root here, of returning, getting closer again to Hashem, of resting, right, of sitting, of relaxing, and then bat is daughter. Now, Bat Sheva, the daughter is 7, right? The Shabbos Malka, the Shabbos Queen. So this, we talked about 7. We talked about the 10 Sephiros, the top 3 are the intellect. The lower 7 are the midos, the emotions. And the top 6, the 6 of the 7 are what's called this Partsuf of Zer Anpin, the prince, right? And that's Klal Yisrael. The Jewish people, we have the role of the prince, and we're trying to reconnect, right, to the crown, right, to Hashem, the Kesser, the top. The top is the crown. We're trying to connect to the one. So we have this bride, right? The bride's the 7th. So it's 6 days a week of creation. The 7th day is the 7th. The 7th, we talk about the lowest Spheros. The 7th of the Spheros is Malchus. That's the day of Shabbos. It's the kingship. It's the kingdom. And we want to reconnect. So the Zohar says, that the Sphira of Malchus goes up to Bina. The princess goes and sits on the queen's throne on Shabbos. So there's one aspect of us returning, yishuv, settling, sitting, relaxing, and then that's going to create the process of the bas, the princess, Malchus, going back up to Bina, going back up to Olam Haba. And that's why Shabbos is connected to Olam Haba. Bina is Olam Haba. Bina is the Kisei Kavod, the throne of glory. So we want to return to Hashem. But it's all about that's all the damage. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to fix. Like that's all the damage. Like we talked about, like the Cheta Egel, but like not going to these important Shabboses, not letting the princess, like the Bat Sheva, reconnect, above. So if you think about it, so like Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, so who's the builder of the temple to reconnect us? He's the son of David HaMelech, King David, and Bathsheba. So his mother's Bathsheba. And then there's also that Yehuda was with Bathshua, which is the same root. It's still that Bathsheba. So the whole line of Yehuda starts with this connection. So David HaMelech, King David, that's why he's going to be able to complete everything, because he's that final completion. He's this connection. But to have the Shabbos Malka, to have the queen go back up, we have to shav to get the bat to elevate, right? We have to be in Shabbos, we have to refrain, and that's why it's interesting. So in the Gemara we're learning, right? It says, what's the ikr? What's the ikr of Shabbos? And Rashi tells us the ikr of Shabbos is she'asru malacha b'Shabbos, right? That malacha are prohibited on Shabbos. So what's the only way to elevate Shabbos back up is to stop doing the malacha on the seventh day. To stop doing malacha, to rest, and that. So I don't know that we can look deeper into it, but that's my initial.
Well, your definition of that was useful.
Okay, that's my initial stab at it. We can look deeper into it. All right, so let's see. Okay, let's keep going through Rashi here. So Rashi's going to say. So just review real quick. So Rashi says, Rabbi Shimon Omer. So Rabbi Shimon says that a basar v'dam, a man of flesh and blood, she'ena yodea itav u'rega'av, who does not know the exact times and moments. So sarich l'kosif mechol al hakodesh. He must add from the weekday onto the holy. So he take Shabbos in early. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sheyodea itav u'rega'av, who knows his times and his moments. So nichnas bo kechut hasara. So Hashem knew that exact moment, that exact instant when Shabbos started. So he finished. So v'nira ki ilu chila. So it appeared as if he finished the Ma'aser Bereishis bo bayom. So Rashi is saying something very, very deep. And this is the same thing we saw in Egypt, in Mitzrayim. Like the Chatzos Halayla, the exact instant in the middle of the night. That's when Hashem brought the plague of the Makos Bechuros. But Moshe describes it kind of around that middle of the night time, because the Egyptian sorcerers, the astrologers, like their necromancers, they didn't know how to do it precisely. They didn't know how to get that time precisely. So we didn't, you want to say, but Hashem knew that instant. Hashem knew the instant that that Shabbos started, and then everything was really done on Yom HaShishi. Everything was completely done and finished on the sixth day, but it appears to us that like Hashem finished on the seventh day, because we don't know those times as precisely as Hashem. But what it's really telling us is that Hashem completed everything on the sixth day, and then Shabbos there was no more creation, there was no more malacha. Everything was done. Everything that would be needed for the 7,000 years of human history was done. And so then Davar Acher, so another thing. He says, Mehaya ha'olam chaser. So what was the world lacking at the end of the sixth day? Right, so if Hashem created everything that was needed, right, this is an interesting question, a great question of Rashi. If Hashem created everything that was needed, so what then was added to the world on Shabbos, right? Menucha, rest. So now and how do you experience menucha? By sitting down, by relaxing, by stopping doing malachas, stop trying to do all these creative things in the world, stop trying to make money, just stop. Just relax. And that's something new that now came into the world. Menucha, rest. So Ba'as Shabbos, when Shabbos came into the world, Ba'as Menucha, Menucha, rest, came into the world. So Kalsa v'nigmara Hamalacha. The work, all the creative work, the creation was completed and was finished. So we have a footnote here. So Bereshis Rabbah in 10:9 and Rashi in Megillah 9a, it says Vayechal. So all of Hashem's active work was performed during the 6 days of creation. And on the seventh day, he put the finishing touch on his work by having it exist in a state of rest. And this is the Gur Aryeh, this is the Maharal. It's his commentary on on the parsha. Sorry, on the Chumash. Right, let me just pause this for a second. I'm going to put one more thing up here. All right, so we're going to finish up with this Midrash Rabbah. And so it's Bereshis Rabbah 11:9. Okay, so the first one's a contradiction because we saw another Midrash that said there was 10 things that were created on the first day. Now, I think the way to resolve it is, so here it's saying the most essential things were the heaven, the earth, and light. But we also saw there was darkness, there was tohu bohu, there was wind and water. So why 10 as opposed to 3? Now I think the importance here is on day 1, really everything was created. But everything was created in just a pure spiritual state. So what this Midrash may be telling us that the things are becoming a little more physical, or coming more physical, even though everything was created on day 1, these 3 became into a more physical form on day 1. Right. So what we're going to see is we're going to see 3. Right. So the first day, heaven, earth, and light. So 3 main things are created on the first day. On day 2, Rikia, the separation of the upper waters and the lower waters, these great heavenly spheres, Gehenna, and the Malachim, the angels. Okay, so day 3 was the trees, the plants, and the Garden of Eden. Day 4, the sun, the moon, the Mazalos, the special constellations, the zodiac, and it also means all the stars, all the galaxies. Right, these are the 3 main categories. On day 5, the fish, the birds, and the Leviathan, the Leviathan. And on day 6, now you can see, so on each of these days, Hashem created 3. But according to Midrash Rabbah here, now on day 6, it's the double portion. It's the double portion of the man, the lechem mishnah, the 2 breads, because now the work's double on Erev Shabbos. So to get everything done, now man, woman, the shiratzim, the creeping creatures, all the insects, the bugs, the domesticated animals, right? The cows, sheep, goats, the domesticated animals, the wild beasts like the lions, the tigers, the harmful spirits. So the shindal is the demons. So we saw that one opinion in Pirkei Avos that the demons were created on day 6. Now, what's so fascinating is this. So why are the demons created last? Right? We said that their role is to break things down, to destroy. Well, we may not have needed them, right? So it's interesting they're created right before Shabbos on day 6, because if Adam and Chava had never eaten from the Eitz Das Tov Ra, if they had never eaten from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, there would be no death. The world would be in the state of Olam Haba. Things wouldn't need to wear away. Things wouldn't need to decay. Things wouldn't need to rot. It would be like, Bila Mavis Lenetzach, like death would be swallowed up for an eternity. Like that's the goal. That's the blueprint of mankind, is that we won't have evil, we won't have death, we won't have disease. But unfortunately, then because they brought it into the world, now Hashem needed to create them right before Shabbos came in. Right? So unfortunately now things need to wear away, things need to die, and then we said that Hashem's trash department, like they take away, they break things back down to their to their natural components, and now unfortunately we needed them. We need them as part of the plan now to complete all of the creation. But Shabbos is the end goal. Shabbos is the day that can help us fix everything up. It can give us just rest. Like, vayina fash, it restores our nefesh, restores our soul. We get we get an neshama yisera, we get an extra soul on Shabbos to do it with. It's sustained us. It sustained us for all these years of the exile. Everything we've had to endure, like we had this gift of Shabbos. We can take a break. Even in the modern secular world, if they would all just stop, I think they would appreciate just how much it restored them, for the next week. Before I was religious, like before I went to yeshiva at Erev Torah, I worked in the film industry, film and television industry in Los Angeles. And I was working at this company called Cinesight. And they were owned by Kodak, and we did special effects. So we did computer effects for movies. And we were working on a movie, ironically, called Sphere. That was written by Michael Crichton, and I think the movie was directed by Barry Levinson, like a native of Baltimore. And we were working on this movie, and we were working 7 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day, and it just went on for months.
Yeah.
And at first it starts out real fun, like you're working on this movie, and the company they buy us a nice fancy lunch. The PA comes in, oh, what do you want for lunch? And a nice order from the restaurant, and then what do you want for dinner? Like, oh, here's my dinner order. And they're treating us really nice, right? They don't usually do this. They don't usually, but you're just on this movie and you got deadlines, and it just never ends. And just like 1 week goes by, and 2 weeks go by, and 3 weeks go by, and you're just always there. You're just like, you go home and sleep a little bit, the week never ends. It's like 1 week becomes the next week, and it never ends. And then you just start to go stir crazy at some point. And you're just trapped, in work. And what are we doing? We're doing malacha, we're doing this creative labor, we're bringing these new images, we're creating this movie, we're working with the light and the sound. And it just never ends. By the way, what I tell you about, there's this one line from that book that I find so incredible. And like the sphere was supposed to be created by like this like infinite extraterrestrial being. I mean, it was kind of God, but he wasn't saying it was quite God. It was, but he said this amazing line in there. And then they were communicating with this being through this sphere. And then like the being started saying like, I'm angry, I'm upset. And an amazing line says, is there anything scarier, than an infinite being having emotions? Like an infinite being that can get angry at you. Right? So the Torah uses all this language, like Hashem's angry, Hashem loves this, Hashem hates this, But the truth is, it's just the seven sephiros. It's the seven lower sephiros. We have real emotions. We have real midos because we're finite. But we're Selem Elokim. If Hashem really got angry, it would be the most terrifying thing. He would wipe us all out. He's telling us that it would be like we would get angry in that situation, so we can understand it. Hashem doesn't have He's not limited by emotions. He's not limited by these midos. The midos and emotions are things he created. Thank God, Baruch Hashem, Hashem cannot really get angry. Hashem cannot really get angry. But Hashem's going to act towards us like he is angry. There's a big distinction. Big distinction between being really like sometimes like with kids, like you can just lose your mind, right? And you can get really angry. And you're not given the best like parental advice when you're angry. Sometimes you really got it together and you're kind of like cool and you're just kind of pretending to, that's what the halakha is, that's what you're supposed to do. You kind of pretend to be angry, like, for the sake of the kids. And now you're really clear. Now you're really like, you're really doing it to help them. But you're pretending to be angry and you're showing them, something wrong. When you just lose it and get angry as a parent, you're really doing it for yourself because you just can't take it anymore. It's beyond, it goes beyond what you want.
Was that movie ever produced?
Yeah, no, it's out. It's not a great movie. It's not a great movie.
Well,
it's not great.
Produced.
What? Yeah, no, it's in the movie theater. I don't think it was a big hit or anything. Yeah, but I always took that away from that book, like how scary it would be if an infinite being got angry. But it's interesting. It's like Baruch Hashem that Hashem doesn't really get angry, but Hashem showing us that this is what you're doing is so bad, so against my idea of good, that I want you to stop it. So Hashem acts in a way. Look, I'm not going to say it's not terrifying. I mean, when Hashem is like, Nister Panim, when he hides his face from us. I mean, look, World War II, the Holocaust, Chas Shalom, that was Hashem acting when he was angry. He gave Malchus, he gave rulership to Amalek, to the Nazis in Yamach Shema for 12 years in Europe. And look at the destruction and the death. It's not pleasant. We don't ever, want to experience that again. And that's so far, so opposite of the plan of the Maisa Bereshis that's Tov Ma'od, that's good. The sixth day when he was done creating on that sixth day, he's like, Tov Ma'od. The world's good. Shabbos is good. Shabbos, we're going to see how it connects us to Shabbat Shalom. Connects us to the completion. The Vayichulu, the Kol, everything, the completion. Shalim, when we're complete. We have peace. We have Menucha. And we're going to see that Shabbos is going to be our great aid. So if only B'ezrat Hashem, like the Jewish people, could wake up again to this great gift of Shabbos and understand the essence of Shabbos and really see how just relaxing on the seventh day, just making and proclaiming the seventh day holy, which it is, changes the whole world. And we're going to see more about the blessing and the holiness of Shabbos tomorrow.